Your sister will take your apartment, my parents stated during dinner. I didn't respond. 1 week on, they came, car loaded. A stranger greeted. I purchased this last week. I was 28, a senior accountant at a small firm nobody outside finance would know, living a quiet life in a Chicago condo I'd built from scratch. My name's Sarah Mitchell. My degree, my job, my credit score, even the oak dining table in my kitchen, I earned every bit of it. No handout, no shortcut. But to my family, I was the cold one. Not because I yelled or stormed out, but because I stopped cleaning up their messes. My older sister, Jessica, 30 but always a step behind, had a knack for turning failure into tragedy and making everyone else fix it. Lost a job? Blame a toxic boss. Evicted? Jealous roommates. Missed bills? She's trying her best. My parents, Linda and Tom, never questioned her. They just pivoted, rearranged, and when they couldn't solve it, they turned to me. You're stable, Sarah. You're lucky. You can help. That line haunted me for years. Help with car payments. Help with rent. Help with bail. Always help. When I dared say no, they acted like I was the one torching the family. I learned early. My value wasn't in being loved. It was in being useful. But usefulness has limits, and they were about to hit mine. Sunday dinner at my parents' suburban house had a rhythm. Same meatloaf, same table, same pressure masked as politeness. That night felt off, rehearsed. Mom greeted me at the door with a smile too wide to trust. You look thin, honey. Eating enough? Dad just nodded, muttering, Hey, kid, his eyes elsewhere. Jessica was already at the table, scrolling her phone, avoiding me like a kid caught skipping class. I knew the signs. Mom's fake sweetness and Dad's silence meant they were about to drop something I wouldn't like. We got through the salad. Mom praised the weather like it deserved a medal. Dad kept refilling his wine. Jessica picked at her food like it might attack. Then Mom set down her fork, folded her hands, and flashed that guilt-laced smile she saved for demands disguised as favors. Sarah, she started, too soft. We've been talking. Jessica's had a rough patch, and she's going to move in with you for a bit.
Just like that.
No question, no discussion. She said it like she was offering pie, expecting me to nod and smile. I felt the room hold its breath, waiting for me to push back, waiting to call me selfish. I looked at Jessica. She glanced up then away. Dad cleared his throat, bracing for a fight. I smiled instead. Sure, I said lightly. If it helps Jessica get back on her feet, why not? The silence was razor sharp. Mom blinked, thrown off. Dad exhaled like he'd dodged a punch. Jessica leaned back, a smug glint creeping across her face. None of them noticed how still I got, how quiet. They thought I'd caved. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that condo for weeks. And I had no intention of letting Jessica, or any of them, waltz into a place that no longer existed. This wasn't a snap decision. It was years in the making, years of quiet letdowns, guilt-tripped favors, and sacrifices they never saw. At 21, Jessica's car got repossessed. She called me sobbing, saying she needed it for a real job. I co-signed, my credit clean. She quit 3 weeks later, missed payments, and my credit took the hit. At 23, Mom called, crying, because the mortgage was late after Dad's layoff. Jessica had moved back in, rent-free. I wired $2,000 the next day. No one said thanks. At Christmas, Mom gave me a "World's Best Daughter" mug, and I nearly laughed. At 25, Jessica got a DUI, her first we knew of. Dad begged me to keep it quiet, said it'd ruin the family name. I paid for the lawyer. Jessica didn't blink. A year later, when she got pulled over again, and I refused to help, Mom called me cold. You don't know what it's like to worry about someone you love, she said. Jessica's life is harder than yours. That was when I knew. They didn't see me. They saw a tool, a faucet to turn on when things broke, a wallet that smiled. I started pulling back, politely. I'd say, I'll think about it, instead of yes. They noticed and they didn't like it. One night, alone in my condo, the one I'd bought without help, decorated with clearance finds, paid for with spreadsheets and sweat, I stared at the front door. It didn't feel safe anymore. It wasn't mine. When they wanted something, it was ours, like my time, my money, my life.
So I made a choice.
I called a realtor, sold the condo quietly, legally.
No fuss.
I moved to a small rental across town, didn't tell them where, and they didn't ask. I could have said something, but I didn't, not out of spite, but survival. When your family only values your usefulness, sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is vanish just enough to breathe. The text started Monday. We'll bring Jessica's mattress Saturday. Tom's loading boxes Friday. She's excited for her own space. I didn't reply. They were talking to a version of me that was gone. Each message assumed I'd open the door, rearrange my life, absorb their chaos without a sound. They'd done it before. They just didn't know I'd stopped listening. By Thursday, Mom was texting daily. Let me know if you need the place cleaned before she moves in. Jessica won't be a burden. She's bringing her own dishes. That one made me chuckle over my coffee. Jessica hadn't washed a dish in years, but I let it play out. I didn't argue. I didn't correct them. I waited. Saturday morning, I left early, grabbed coffee, drove aimlessly across town, wandered a farmer's market without buying a thing, stood in the sun longer than I needed to. My phone buzzed 3 times before I checked. Missed calls, voicemails. On the 4th, I picked up. Sarah. It was Mom, not her soft voice, but the brittle, panicked one. What's going on? There's some guy here. He says he lives in the condo. Says you don't live there anymore. I let the silence stretch, let her feel the uncertainty, the wrongness of it. You didn't tell us, she snapped. You never said a word. No, I said evenly. I didn't. I heard bags rustling, Dad's voice low and sharp, Jessica muttering something. Sarah, Mom hissed. What is this? I sold the condo, I said simply. Weeks ago. I moved out. Didn't think it mattered. Nobody asked where I lived, so I didn't say. Silence. I pictured them on that porch, bags dropped, arms crossed, realizing they planned to take over and showed up at the wrong address. Dad's voice cut through. You lied to us. You said she could move in. I said, if it helps Jessica, why not? I replied. I didn't say where. Another pause. Mom's sharp inhale. Jessica, finally. So what? We're just supposed to figure it out now. She sounded young, not angry, lost. For a second, I almost answered. But I didn't. Here's what they didn't get. I didn't sell the condo to make a point. I didn't change my life out of anger. I did it because I was tired of living in a space that never felt mine. I did it because I deserved a home where I didn't brace for their demands. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for people who won't change is stop making room for them. They thought that was it. They were wrong. By evening, they were at my new door. I knew they'd come. Even as I sipped coffee that morning, ignoring their voicemails, I knew Mom wouldn't let it go. She'd dig, call someone, or just show up to prove I was still theirs. At sunset, the knock came, 3 sharp raps, polite but barely holding together. I checked the peephole. Linda, Tom, Jessica, and a car trunk stuffed with boxes, like it was moving day. I opened the door halfway. You found me, I said flatly. Mom looked frazzled, lipstick faded, hair pushed back from nervous hands. We tried calling, she said, voice tight. We didn't think you'd actually be here. It's my apartment, I said. But you said, Dad's voice rose. You said she could move in. Now we're here with her stuff, and you're acting like we're strangers. I didn't budge. I never said she could move in here. I said, if it helps Jessica, why not? That was for the old place, which I don't live in anymore. Jessica stepped forward, arms crossed, cheeks red with fury, not shame. This is petty, Sarah. You always act like you're better than us. This is cruel. I tilted my head. You packed your life and drove across Chicago to move into an apartment you didn't even check still existed. That's not cruelty. That's entitlement. Jessica's voice cracked. You're my sister. Yeah, I said. And you've spent years confusing that with free rent. Dad stepped in, voice sharp. Enough, Sarah. We're not leaving. You owe this to your sister. There it was, oh. As if every dollar I'd paid, every problem I'd fixed, every sleepless night over their messes was part of some contract I never signed. I stepped back, grabbed my phone. What are you doing? Mom asked, eyes narrowing. I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings. 911. What's your emergency? I stayed calm. I have family members outside my apartment refusing to leave. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Jessica's jaw dropped. Dad swore. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. Sarah, she whispered, almost pleading, you're calling the cops on your family? I asked you to leave, I said. You didn't. I gave the dispatcher my address. Jessica's voice shook with rage. This'll ruin everything. Do you know what people will think? Yeah, I said. They'll say I finally stopped opening my door. Mom's voice shrank. You used to be kind. I didn't flinch. You used to notice when I was hurting. The silence was heavy, packed with every boundary I'd let them cross, every yes I'd choked out when I wanted to scream no. 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. The officer stepped out, tall, calm, hand near her belt but relaxed. Evening, she said. We got a call about trespassing. I nodded. That's me. She glanced at my parents, Jessica, the car with boxes. Ma'am, sir, I need you to leave the premises. This is our daughter, Dad said. This is her residence, the officer replied, which you're not allowed to occupy without permission. Jessica looked ready to cry or throw something. You'll regret this, Sarah. No, I said. I've regretted everything until now. This I'm sure of. The next day, I woke to 12 missed calls. 5 from mom, 2 from dad, the rest from cousins or old family friends. Then the texts. Why would you do this to your sister? Your mom's devastated. Jessica's sleeping in her car. Is that what you wanted?
I didn't reply.
I scrolled until I found it. A public Facebook post from mom, 3 paragraphs with heartbreak emojis and a photo of Jessica as a toddler. We raised our daughters to care for each other. But one has forgotten what that means. We're heartbroken that Sarah, so successful, so fortunate, would turn her back in our time of need. Jessica didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since middle school, calling me selfish, cold, ungrateful. It wasn't new, just louder. I stared at the screen, then did something I'd never done. I posted back.
No flare, no hashtags.
Just screenshots. The $2,000 bank transfer for their mortgage, my name on Jessica's car loan next to a collections notice, the lawyer's invoice from her DUI, a timeline of every one-time favor since I was 21, the condo sale receipt, and a message Jessica sent 2 years ago calling me a boring robot for not letting her crash for a month. I ended with one line. I didn't abandon my family. I stopped volunteering for their emotional debt. I turned off my phone, not out of fear, but because I didn't need the noise. I needed quiet. And for once, I had it. That night, my apartment was still. No hallway chatter, no buzzing phone, just the hum of the fridge and the creak of old pipes. I made chamomile tea, not for sleep, but for the ritual, a warm cup in both hands, steam rising like forgiveness I didn't ask for. My phone lit up, Mom, then Jessica. I didn't read the messages. I knew the pattern, shock, anger, guilt, pleading. I blocked their numbers, not out of cruelty, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. I stepped onto the balcony. The Chicago night was chilly but not biting, the kind of cold that reminds you you're alive. Below, the city moved, headlights glowing, someone walking a dog in a too-big coat. A neighbor waved from 2 floors down. I waved back. It was small, but realer than anything I'd done out of obligation. Back inside, I turned off the lights. Living room, kitchen, hallway. No family photos, no picture frames, just clean, quiet space. I didn't feel triumphant or bitter. I just felt done. Done performing, done explaining, done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned to breathe on their own. Somewhere, they were probably rewriting the story, painting me as the villain, the cold daughter.
Let them.
I didn't come here to be loved. I came to stop pretending I'd vanished. They told the story like I had. Now, I'd written my own.